Today's episode is brought to you by IFL Watches.
Is Rolex out of money? Is Rolex tightening the belt? Are they strapped for cash? Because why else would they seize their 11-year relationship with F1? They're paying $50 million a year to be the timekeeper, the main sponsor, not the only sponsor in the entire sport, but the main sponsor. And now the rumors are, and they've been validated quite a bit, while there's not been an official release from Rolex, that it is over. And what's so funny is it's really, of all times now, in this wild expansion of the sport, when more people are watching now more than ever. I mean, 70 million people tuned into the Grand Prix last year. I mean, why now, Rolex? Why 11 years in? Well, fantastic questions. And who's coming in next? And how does it make sense at all? So a ton of really interesting stuff happening in the watch industry right now. Sort of apocalyptic, it seems like. Are we in late stage capitalism? Maybe. What does that mean? I don't really know, right? A lot of people have different definitions. People like to say that, right? But it kind of does feel like it's, Orwellian, right? So let's get into it. Rolex clearly has an emphasis in their brand image, not that they're market actively and aggressively, not that they're constantly messaging and being over the top, but Rolex likes being associated with, in a very sort of humble, reserved way, with excellence, be it in golf, be it in tennis, be it in F1. Rolex likes to be around excellence. And that's just in sporting. It also, it remains true in other industries, right? I mean, the James Cameron collaboration is far deeper than Rolex sponsoring a celebrity. It is excellence in exploration. James Cameron being obviously a celebrity for many other reasons, but he truly is, or embodies, the explorer spirit, just the same way that Vacheron had their engagement with Corey Richards, right? The climber that almost summited Everest. These engagements on Rolex's behalf, I think, are really tasteful. They're hyper intelligent. I almost wish sometimes they'd push the envelope a little bit further in their activation. I wish that they would put a little bit more, legwork into making us all not just be aware of the association of excellence, but really feel it, really storytell it. They do it sometimes. They've done it with film a little bit at the Academy Awards. They've done it here. They've done it there again with James Cameron separately with his Deep Sea. That activation was pretty significant, although the storytelling was fairly subtle. But Rolex now, of all times, is choosing to step away. They're paying $50 million a year, which is a lot of money to me, to Rolex, who does $13 billion in top-line revenue every year. I'm not sure how significant that number is to them. Rolex seems to spend hundreds of millions of dollars the way that, buy paper plates in the summertime for our, humble little middle-class barbecues, right? Rolex is, not super transparent with their production numbers, of course, but we know that they are expanding their capabilities. Why are they doing it? We don't necessarily know. Obviously, to make more watches, but is that because they plan on continuing to increase the demand? Or is it because they're trying to satisfy the current excess of demand? We don't know. There's a million things we don't know about Rolex, but we do know, or at least we feel very strongly, that they are stepping away from their partnership with F1. Really interesting. So now, even more interesting, who's stepping in and how did this even happen? Right? The rumor is that Tag Heuer, really LVMH, the conglomerate that owns Tag Heuer being an important asset in their watch portfolio alongside Zenith and Hublot and Bulgari and the Gerald Genta brand, so many different brands, Daniel Roth. A nice and growing catalog or collection rather of watch brands. Tag Heuer apparently has answered that call, or LVMH has answered the call and put Tag Heuer in as the brand that represents the firm. And apparently, the rumor is that they're not paying $50 million, not $75, not $100, but $150 million for the same sponsorship. That's really fascinating. I mean, a 3x, we're talking about from 50 to 150. It's particularly interesting when you factor in the difference in top line revenue, right? Rolex is a $13 billion company. Tag Heuer does a little over $800 million a year. They've been growing, of course. They're doing quite well, but a little over $800 million a year. So, I mean, those numbers don't really add up, right? Those numbers don't really add up. I mean, this is a huge investment for Tag Heuer, or is it an investment for LVMH as a conglomerate that doesn't necessarily just plan to benefit via the Tag Heuer funnel, right, and product catalog, but through the conglomerate? It's really interesting. And it's particularly, I think it's even more interesting when you factor in that LVMH has recently taken a stake in Richemont. They've been stalking Cartier for years. They just invested, as we've talked about in depth. We went very, very deep in depth on this in our podcast community on The Zero. Those episodes where Sam and I sat down for over an hour and a half and discussed the significance and the long-term kind of impact of this sort of investment and I suppose, just growth of LVMH as a conglomerate, this insatiable, kind of creepy desire to buy everything. We talked about this on The Zero. Go take a look. Link is down below. We seem to be living in odd times, right? That's no secret, right? I mean, the last, obviously, the COVID experience was one of, the single greatest, consolidations of wealth. And we don't really seem, it doesn't really seem to be slowing down. It actually seems to be getting worse. And it's happening again. Now, that's not me positioning Rolex as like this little old mom and pop. Rolex is a huge, huge company, the biggest watch company in the world, of course. But LVMH is a titan, right? Rolex is a child compared to the LVMH conglomerate. So it's funny that it's odd, rather, that they've eaten their lunch here. Today's episode is sponsored by our friends over at IFL Watches. They've got a new fantastic release based on the classic and ever reliable and beautiful Citizen Soyosa. And this new motif is a favorite of mine. They call it the Wise Guys release, but it really is three wise monkeys, which is a motif that is my favorite. I have them here on a pair of Belgian shoes because I love the message. I love the idea. I love the classic fable of the three monkeys, right? Hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil. This is something that many people forget these days, but really, there's something to be said about minding your own business. And there's something, it's true. And there's something about fraternity or sorority in that message that has really spoken to men and women for a very, very long time. It's a classic proverb, and this new IFL watch, hand-painted, by the way, as always, pays homage perfectly, and they've done it in a modern and new way. We've got sunglasses, headphones, and a bandana, which really gives this entire collaboration on this, classic proverb a very new and fresh and modern approach and execution. I love the dials, I love the monkeys, I love the message, and I love IFL watches. Not just this release, but so many of them, be it their Citizens, be it their Oris watches, like their Aquas, be it their G-Shocks. IFL watches take such attention to detail and elevates what otherwise might be a normal, beautiful, reliable, fantastic, but normal watch, and brings it to a new level, right? A new level with unique character and artistry that I just think is fascinating, and all, relatively speaking, at a great price. So take a look over at IFL Watches, explore this new release and everything else they have to offer. The next question, so it's binary, you can only have it one way. Was Rolex grossly underpaying for their sponsorship of F1? Or is Tag Heuer, LVMH, grossly overpaying? Because $50 and $150 million are far ways away from each other, right? So someone was getting a deal, or someone is grossly overpaying. Either way, that party, because they are staffed with geniuses, I'm sure, knew. Right? If Rolex was getting a song and a deal, they knew they were doing that, and they're happy to move away from it now, maybe. And if LVMH is grossly overpaying, they know that they're doing that. This reminds me very much, I'm a soccer fan, I'm a football fan, and it reminds me very much of what we're seeing in European football, although actually in American, I think, impending as well, which is, there are investors in the sport that actually are not investing in the sport for, direct profitability. They're actually investing to turn a profit anytime soon. They're doing it because they want to buy and own culture. Right. So what does good look like? What does success look like coming out of an engagement when you just handed over $150 million? if it's not direct, profitability over the next 5 years, what is it? And it's quite arguably to just own everything, regardless of the direct profitability, regardless of whether or not it actually may be like an obvious, good decision for the TAG Heuer brand. It actually may be a bath for TAG and a loss leader for LVMH as a conglomerate. There's no way to know. We don't understand their grand brand plan. We don't. This is a 87 billion euro, annual company. It's a huge company. I can't imagine the complexity of the way that they are analyzing the next 10, 20, 30, 50 years. I can't even imagine what those rooms, what's being said in those rooms. I truly can't, right? I'm just a, old school small business guy that, has a reasonably good understanding on how to build a, profitable small business, right? Where you sell more than you spend and you profit and you buy shit and pay for your family, and maybe a couple of leaders of the company become millionaires, and they don't have to think about money again, but they also don't they don't have money where you could buy a sports team, right? That's just normal people. These guys aren't behaving like that. These guys are thinking about, what is the benefit of owning an entire country? What does that do for our global 30-year plan? I have no idea. Will LVMH buy Patek Philippe? Talked about this in the Zero, right? I went far more in depth on it there, and I think it's very scary and crazy to think about it. And we raised some interesting questions. Would Patek Philippe be better under LVMH as a watch brand, right? And even if so, at what cost? Is this consolidation not scary to anybody? Is this not kind of disheartening to think that, okay, everything, we think that everything is separate, but it's actually all the same and owned by one, right? It's like all of these waves are part of the same ocean. You look at them as individuals, but they're not, right? That was in the last season of The Sopranos. Some, physicist was kind of referencing that kind of idea, but these are crazy times. Rolex walked away from a $50 million a year sponsorship, and they are not strapped for cash. You can bet anything on that. Bet the farm on that. And TAG Heuer, the stand-in for LVMH is paying triple. Meanwhile, their top line revenue is a very, very small fraction of what Rolex does. It's wild. It's wild stuff. So, apropos, I'm wearing the TAG Heuer Kith collab, the Formula One. I like this watch actually quite a bit, but I had no idea. I never would have imagined. In fact, I would have bet against that idea that LVMH might be, Rolex might be leaving, LVMH might be standing in. I never would have imagined that. Never would have imagined that Rolex would walk away from a major sporting event and growing. Never would have imagined it. And yet it's happened. And here I am with this TAG Heuer Kith plastic watch for $1,700. And maybe in a very little way, maybe we paid for this. Maybe we paid for this $150 million insane, thing. I don't know. The watch industry is a crazy place. The world is a crazy place, ladies and gentlemen. Shop small. Do something. Do something. I mean it. It's fucking scary. Shop small. Go to a mom and pop. Oh my God. Go. I don't know. I mean it. It's weird. I need a drink. Cheers, everybody. Subscribe to the Theo and Harris channel. Oh my God. It's Theo and Harris channel, right? Yeah. This is Theo and Harris.
Yeah, I know. You never say that.
Subscribe to the Theo and Harris channel. And I don't know. Google what stores are independent, and then be careful if you spend with them, because LVMH will buy them. They make nice watches, though. I got to say, all the brands that are under their leadership right now are doing well. You can't hate them for that. Just fucking feels dystopian, doesn't it? Is no one saying this? Am I the only one not taking money from LVMH? I think that's actually true. Everyone else makes what is generally nominal amounts of money, and their opinions are sold, and mine isn't, because they don't pay me any money. If they paid me, some money, I probably would be a little bit softer on them, but it's weird, guys. It's weird. And I would still have to give the watches the greatest compliments, because they're great. LVMH does a fantastic job. The leadership of LVMH in the watch industry, meaning on the production level, fantastic. They're killing it. TAG Heuer is great. Bulgari's great. Daniel Roth is great. Their collab with the Crivia was very cool. The new Louis Vuitton Tambour is cool. So many cool things. They're doing great. I don't know. I'm going to go jump out of a window. That's it. That's how I feel. Bradley Cooper is to blame. I think, Mr. American Sniper, prosthetic nose. I actually didn't mind that, but I don't know. Be well. go subscribe to The Zero. Talked even more in depth over there.